Let's now turn to the big focus story. Hearing a case where a man contracted a second marriage and did not disclose this to his first wife, Allahabad High Court has made important observations on Muslim marriages. The man's appeal was to restore conjugal rights with his first wife, which the court denied, citing violation of fundamental right as well as violation of religious provisions mentioned in the Quran. The plea was filed first in a family court where the man stated his wish to live with both his wives. Since the first wife refused to live with him and share his consortium with another woman, the plea sought restoration of conjugal rights. The plea seeking restoration was filed. Having heard both the parties, the family court dismissed the husband's plea. This plea was again challenged further in a higher court. Challenging this order, the petitioner moved to the High Court, which again dismissed the plea. So let's first take our viewers through what the High Court observations are. Let's put that out on screen, please, of the High Court observations on this matter. The appellant contracted a second marriage without the knowledge of his first wife. Such conduct amounts to cruelty to the first wife. The wife cannot be compelled against her will as part of conjugal rights. As per Quran as well, if a Muslim man is not capable of fostering his wife and children, then he cannot marry another woman. Acceptance of appellant's plea would therefore amount to breach of fundamental rights of the respondent under Article 21, which is right to life and right to liberty. So that is primarily what the Allahabad High Court said. On two counts, the plea was dismissed. First, considering this is related to Muslim marriages, the court says the Quran does not allow it. The second marriage without the consent of the first wife, and also then citing Article 21. So let's also look at the figures, because this is not just polygamy, even though is something that is often discussed as part of Islam. If we look at the figures, what we see, and these are figures from the National Family Health Survey data, let's put out those figures where polygamy is prevalent among all communities. 1.3% of Hindus, 1.9% of Muslims, 2.1% of Christians, 0.5% Sikhs, and 1.3% of Buddhists as well. So it is not as if this is a menace only afflicting the Muslim community. However, in this particular case, here is a Muslim man who approached the court asking for restoration of conjugal rights with his first wife, who actually did not approve of his second marriage. Not just that, she was not even aware that the second marriage had taken place. In fact, let's introduce our guest joining us here this evening, Tahira Hasan, activist who's also strongly spoken out against this matter, Sunita Ojha, advocate from the Supreme Court, and Professor Atikur Rehman, political analyst. Very good evening to all of you. Thanks for joining us here. If I may begin with you, Tahira Hasan, because I read your statements on this particular case, and you, as a women's rights activist, are very clear in this case that, you know, the High Court's decision should be welcome, and the message should go across that women cannot be abandoned at whim, which in this case the man was trying to do. But here at least we know that the man did not really want to abandon. He actually wanted to keep both wives, and that, the court said, is not permissible, both under religious personal law and under provisions of the Quran.
Yes, I welcome Allahabad High Court decision that dismissed the plea of the Muslim man who has married second time. So I think it's a high time. You know, Islam also does not permit a Muslim man to marry without giving equality to all women, and that is not possible to treat all wives equally, you know, and without consent, without information. I mean, you got married and you are treating women as a object, you know, as a commodity, use and throw. She is not a toy or object for your enjoyment. So I think it's a high time they must try to understand that women have their own right to choice. Their dignity should be respected, should be acknowledged, and they should be respected. So I think Allahabad High Court decision should be welcomed not only by me, by all the women of this country, because it's a question of dignity of the woman. I mean, even the Islam does not say that you marry 1, 2, 3, 4 wives without consent, without treating them equal. And it's not a human nature to cannot treat all wives equally, you know. And no wife will, we have our dignity. We are, I mean, women cannot compromise in this stage, that she can keep, she will live with another wife also. And you stayed with one wife, she looked after you, she looked after your house. After that, you have abandoned her as a commodity. I mean, you want her to stay with your second wife. I mean, this is not a way. I think it's a high time the polygamy must be banned in India.
That's saying then, because you know there will be many who will in fact then bring up the issue of uniform civil code, that all of this is happening because you want to have a separate set of laws based on Quran, and time and again issues keep cropping up. Before this, of course, it was the triple talaq. The court intervened. On the issue of whether the court can intervene, it seems opinion is greatly divided. I want to bring in the two other guests, Professor Atikur Rahman and Sunita Ojha. In this case, of course, Professor Rahman, the Allahabad High Court has relied on both the religious personal aspect of it and the law of the land. Is that how it should work ideally? That if the court chooses to intervene, then it takes cognizance of both these aspects.
Afrida, generally speaking, my point of view is, you know, the courts should not interfere in the more personal, you know, laws of the communities, be it Islam or Hinduism or any other religion. But
so where will a woman go seeking justice, tell me? To the Muslim Personal Board?
Right.
Which is dominated,
Afrida,
which is an all-men body.
This is a very important point.
Where will the women go? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is a very, very important point. And I should applaud the, you know, the efforts and the struggle of people like Tahira Hasan ji, who have really marked a very great difference of opinion in the Muslim, you know, people and the community by their fight against orthodoxy. I should applaud their, you know, this thing. Polygamy has no place in the present day world. Every, you know, Muslim have to adhere to the rights of the first wife. There is no two opinions about it. You know, Afrida, I would like to draw your attention towards the entire distinct Surah Nisa, the Surah 4 of the Quran, wherein the underlining factor Allah commands is, since you cannot go for equality, for 4 wives, marry only one. Another important factor, Afrida, is if you ban polygamy, then the issue of orphans, because this ayah, this verse was revealed to Prophet Muhammad under the circumstances wherein too many, you know, wives who were widowed and orphans were too many in
but such a provision should be completely abolished, don't you think, Mr. Rahman? You yourself agree there is no place in today's society. But if you have a provision which says a Muslim husband has the legal right to take a second wife even while the first marriage subsists, if the husband, after taking a second wife, again the wishes of the first wife also wants the assistance of the civil court to compel the first to live with him, the court will respect the sanctity of the second marriage, but it will not compel the first wife against her wishes to live with the husband under the altered circumstances. So the court also, in a way, has accepted its limitation. Well, if you have, as per your religious personal law, allowed taking in of a second wife, at least do not force the first wife to co-inhabit. That is all the court is saying. But the fact of the matter is, in today's time and age, when you allow this, look at the amount of liberty taken by this man. He's gone ahead, married a second time, did not inform his wife. Then he wants both wives in the same house. And this is where the case came up. So there is a huge amount of, you know, taking advantage of these provisions. Shouldn't we as a society, shouldn't the community come together and simply abolish these practices? There is no place in Islam, like you said, Atikur Rahman.
Afrida, a very, very important point, you know. that equality should be maintained and cannot be compromised. If the first wife feels that equality is not maintained, she has every right to, accuse the husband of not getting, this second marriage or the third or the fourth. A very important factor. We cannot compromise with it, because that Allah says and commands that since you cannot maintain equality, marry only one. That's an underlining factor.
No, no, I have a problem. Even I have a problem. Even with the aspect of allowing them. Is the woman also allowed the same? No. So the point is, here is an inherent bias against the gender. Sunita Ojha, would you like to come in? Do you think that the court has intervened in this matter in a correct way, in a correct manner, taking all aspects under consideration?
Thank you. See what the Constitution, when we adopted the Constitution, Article 44 spoke about Uniform Civil Code. And Dr. Ambedkar actually gave his opinion that while it is desirable, it should be voluntary. It's been 75 years, yet women have had to go to the courts even for something. For instance, Christian women, they won their right, equal rights in terms of divorce, only through a court battle. The triple talaq issue also came to court, and finally, that was settled. So time and again, it's the courts have been called upon, and given the constitutional, the four walls of constitutional mandate, and especially looking at the fundamental rights, right to equality, where the courts have interpreted to give them wider and wider.
But the counter argument, Ms. Ojha, would be that this has nothing to do with religion. This has to do with poverty. Polygamous marriage is higher among poor, uneducated, rural and older women. So, is it really relevant to the argument of Uniform Civil Code? Because
so unfortunately, see, the problem is more, or in fact, across the religion, whether it is Hinduism or Christianity or Islam, they have primarily been formulated keeping the patriarchal requirements, the requirements of a man in mind, and therefore they tend to be, they tend to actually discriminate against women. So it from the top to bottom. So therefore, any reform that we are talking about, whether it has to be through at least ensuring basic common minimum, what we are calling as whether it is inheritance rights in terms of divorce, because these are the four areas which are basically allowed to be governed by personal laws: your marriage, your divorce, your inheritance, your adoption. So you see, while there are certain good things, for example, adoption is only allowed for Hindus. It's not allowed in any other religion. Now, through Juvenile Justice Act, you try and carve out a small exception, and you give a ground to other religion also to go for adoption. So the point is, why should not in a country governed by constitution, why should not we have a common laws to even govern these four areas, which ensure the basic dignity, basic right to equality, basic right to life. So therefore,
yes,
polygamy actually, it hits the Article 14. It hits Article 14. And it has only been surviving as a practice, of course, because of social realities, but primarily because of so-called, people's the vehemence that they feel that it is something which is protected by religion, which is so much against women. Because, as you rightly pointed out, if the right has been given to a man to have more than one wife, why should that same right not be given to a woman? Not that I'm saying that is the most desirable thing, but the moment you flip the argument, it shows the discriminatory aspect in its very clearly. So, and for
can
example,
it be possible in a multi-religious society? Is that possible? Tahira Hasan wants to come in. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm saying that this polygamy is assault on the dignity of the women, Because whatever has been laid down in the Quran, a strict rule, that a common man is not able to follow, you know. So this polygamy nowadays in 21st century, it is a direct assault on dignity of the women. You know, husband can have 2, 3, 4 wives, and the women's sexuality is controlled. This patriarchy, you know what it is, which is deep rooted.
Yes.
They make their rule, and through that rule they control the
Which is why I'm saying, Tahira Hasan, which is why I'm saying, Professor Atikur Rahman, why can't the community,
what to eat?
Why can't the community decide by consensus to abolish this practice, just like some Muslim countries have abolished triple talaq? Why can't this practice
it will be beautiful
willingly
if the
surrendered,
reform
saying it should not be allowed, and let there be a law banning this. Let there be a law banning this practice. It will apply to everyone. Can the community come together in this, Tahira Hasan?
Yes, of course, it will be beautiful if the reform comes from within the community. But we are raising our voice, but it depends what the personal law board is going to say and what the others Maulanas are saying. They will not agree, I'm telling you.
Which is why I did not have a Maulana in the show, because often what happens, Tahira Hasan,
in Quran even
that,
once,
you know,
then two they were...
The clergy speaks for the community, and it often, you know, it gets my blood boiling, because they speak as if they're speaking for the whole lot of us, which is often not true.
Yes.
And I refuse to
The
give
committee
platform to
must
any
come
of those
out from the
Maulanas.
grip of the
I want an
Maulanas.
informed opinion on this. The fact of the matter is, like you said, that this is anti-women. This is deeply entrenched in patriarchy. Anybody can see it, that it is hurtful to the dignity of women. Professor Atikur Rahman, why then would you not, why don't you start a campaign as an educator, as somebody who has enough knowledge of Islam, gather people together, build consensus and say, well, we are going to do away with this, and it has to come from within the community. Who are we afraid of? Are we afraid of All India Muslim Personal Law Board? We know that the custodians of religion, they have to survive. It is for their own relevance that they continue to support these practices. It's their bread and butter. So is it them that we are afraid of? Why can't the informed, the educated Muslims come together in this? Atikur Rahman.
Afrida, the battle against orthodoxy has reached a very, very great stage wherein people are now accepting the reforms, and they are all up to, you know, provide equality on these matters, whether it is triple talaq or it is, you know, polygamy, etc. The struggle needs to go on with a good and firm vigor. The problem, Afrida, is in this age, when we are every evening looking at a particular community being demonized in the name of triple talaq and polygamy, you know, people from the ruling regime, the spokesperson come and say, वो 4 शादी करते हैं, 14 बच्चे पैदा करते हैं. Therein our effort and our struggle against orthodoxy minimizes somewhere. We are trying our best to reform our society, and we are also getting good results. But in this ugly fashion, from the ruling regime side and the Hindutva forces, you know, that's a great challenge when we are, crumbled against the orthodoxy within the community and the Hindutva forces. We are struggling a lot, and far-reaching implications
so
are
you are
expected.
saying, am I getting you correctly here? You are saying that all the more people are guarding the religious symbols, the religious values, because you feel there is an attack, from the majoritarian community. You feel that people are unwilling to compromise on this because it feels as if now is the time to guard our culture, our religion with all our might. Now is not the time to dilute any of this. Is that the argument you're making, Professor Atikur Rahman?
Afrida, the hardline approach towards religiosity needs to be fought with a rational mind, not with a communal weapon, as we are looking every evening on other TV channels. That's our whole point. You know, the change within the community can only be expected when we are having a positive approach and we are having a scientific temperament, not communalization and demonization of a community.
Is that a fair argument, Sunita Ojha, that here is a community that is already demonized day in and day out? So for the community to come together and think of a reform that depletes anything from religion is not something that the current ecosystem allows. Rather, it's the opposite impact that is happening. Yes, go ahead.
I will refer to the chart that you showed, showing the polygamy, which is prevalent, right from whether Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Parsis. That let's see what the statistics say.
Yes, please
so
put those
therefore,
figures out,
today,
yes.
if there is a law which bans polygamy, I don't understand why only Muslim community should take it as if the law is targeted against them. I'm not.
No, because here the religious text allows it. Here, in this case, the religious text says it is allowed. That is the reason. Yeah.
You see, polygamy in Hindus. I can give an example of Hindus. How has it managed to? How does your statistics still show that? Because there are certain rules that unless and until this is done, for a woman to prove bigamy in court of law, it takes a Herculean task, right? So what my argument is, if there is a clear-cut law which says it bans polygamy, I think that applies across to all the religions. And it benefits all the women. So I think all the women needs to speak unanimously for a law of that nature.
Yes.
Now, if somebody is feeling offended, etc., let me tell you, it's been 75 years. We have not been able to build consensus. So it is time that either it comes through a court judgment,
yes,
or it comes through a law. But this is something that has to stop, because a woman the woman who is not raising a voice against the man conducting a second marriage. Which are these women? These women who are in majority of cases, or in fact in almost all the cases, they are the women who are financially dependent on the husband. They will not open their mouth. How long can we keep hiding behind the religious, the blanket of religion, saying that this is something which is protected by religion? That argument has not served women till date, and it is, even today it is against women across the religions.
So you have Islamic countries who always have taken that effort to abolish these practices. So why can't we do that? Last word to you, Tahira Hasan, before we close the conversation. Go ahead, ma'am.
No, of course, the Muslim women, not only Muslim women, women irrespective to caste and creed and religion must come on one platform and raise their voice against these practices, barbaric practices, I will say, that assault on the dignity of the women. We must raise our voice with all the women of this country. I'm not saying that only Muslim women.
But Tahira Hasan, as you know, the argument will be made that if you criminalize it, it will be misused against the Muslim community. That argument always is made, as it was made for triple talaq.
But all the laws are misused.
True.
Murder,
but the current ecosystem, there is more of that feeling that this is again targeting one community. But I take your point. I take your point that this needs
any tool. All the tools are misused.
True, and this has to apply across religions. This is a practice that must be totally banned. Of course, it's not as widely prevalent. A very small percentage of polygamous marriages happen in this country. But even so, why should it stay? That's the question, and that's the argument. Thanks very much for joining us, Tahira Hasan, Sunita Ojha, and Professor Atikur Rehman, for giving us your time.
Thank you.